Welcome back, my fellow duplicants, to Oxygen Not Included. Today we're going to take a little look here at rocket shipping. Isn't that right, Meep? Oh, he's so excited. So what I want to figure out here today is an easy way to automate this rocket, and it's going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past, where we kind of use the orbital cargo module. So if we go to the star map here real quick, what you can do with that orbital cargo module is you can actually fly out here, drop it from the surface, and then go back and land on the same planet you took off from. So that way you can kind of load things up, set things on kind of a timer, and then just keep going around and around and moving product from one planet to the other without ever landing on it. This is going to be a little bit different because what I want to do is go from one planet here all the way to this planet over there, but I don't have enough fuel to go from here and back in one run. So I need to land over here, I need to unload everything, and then refuel the rocket so that it can fly back. And before that, I need to make sure that the cargo is full. So I need to make sure that I've delivered everything there. So to handle that, I kind of need to really figure out ways to work with the cargo module down here, or the gas cargo, or the liquid thing, because I might also want to bring back some water and whatnot, or whatever, from this planet's surface right here, not just the solids. However, there's a thing that makes this quite tricky. If we go into the automation and we really look at what's going on here, this output signal that comes from the rocket here isn't really tied to the storage module that's part of our rocket, at least not in the current build of the game. It kind of looks like it would be, but as it turns out, it's not. So let me go ahead and switch this out here, and you can see what I mean. Alright, so I swapped out the cargo bay here, and what you can see here is that this cargo loading incomplete. See how it's kind of orange? It doesn't actually need to be true in order for the signal that this is actually waiting for to become true. So in this rocket's example here, we have everything ready except for a destination. So once I complete that, we'll see that this won't have any effect. We'll be able to get a true signal out of it. So let me go ahead and change this destination. We'll just head right on over to the other planet real quick. So now you can see that we have all of this complete. We're just needing some crew. Beep's going to jump in there. You can see that we now have qualified crew. There's extra passengers on board. They need to get out of there. There we go, kicked Camille out of there. And now you can see that everything here is ready, except for the cargo bay is empty. However, if we go to the automation overlay, this is now giving us a true signal. So here's the thing, if this lands on a planet and it still has enough fuel to go from one planet to the other and back, and it still has all the stuff there, the rocket will land, and then as it's landing, basically give off a true signal that says it's ready to launch again. So this rocket can land and then take off right off the bat, which means you don't have time to unload the rocket or to load it with new stuff. So the easiest way I know to get around this, if you have enough stuff and you can kind of queue it up, is to really just delay the signal that sends that one out as true for long enough for you to unload things and then reload it. This is about as bare bones as I can make it. Although it's worth mentioning here that the automation that's kind of in this area is going to get extremely hot. So I currently have this made out of copper, which will melt. Tungsten's a good material to put in this area, or steel. So if I just try to set up a very simple shipping route between Sludgax and my second planet over here, Topazirian, all I want to do is be able to bring plastic over here, and then, let's see here, what do I want to bring back? Lumber's going to be a good one. This planet has lots and lots of arbor trees, so let's load up lumber here. So this is kind of the bare bones for automation. Essentially, we're just going to load stuff up. You're going to see that pretty much all these resources here, I'm saying I don't have a need for them in my base. I'm just going to load them up on the line, and they're just going to sit there until they end up in the rocket. So we're going to end up building up a big queue of material here, plus 1,000 kilograms inside of the conveyor loader there. I'll try to keep this nice and simple because I've gone down the route of making it very complex and then having it not really work all that well. So right now we're 1 kilogram off for being completely full, but I think we're going to go ahead and start to run this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this, right? I want it to go over here like that, but I want to change this from any landing pad to the one that's actually there. So I'm going to go to that pad and back, and I'm going to set this to toggle a looping round trip. So we're going to fly over there, and then we're going to fly back over and over again. That's going to be its route. So I've hooked up the exact same automation over here. Essentially, all I'm going to do is just set up this timer so that the second we land here, we'll get a nice true signal, but we're going to wait long enough for it to unload and then reload, and then it will come back. So really, every 200 seconds, we're going to be traveling between that. So there's going to be 3 trips a day, so long as I have the on switch in both locations. So once I flip this switch, things should start to happen. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, everything is active. We're just going to wait for this to count down to make it go a little bit faster. I'm just going to set it short real quick. There we go. Boop. Set it up to 200. And then we go back to normal speed just to see what's happening here. Meep, since he's inside of the rocket, should go ahead and jump on the pilot's seat. And there we go. Now the rocket is starting to launch. Just like that. Since the rocket has left, we're now back to red. We've reset the filter gate. And the dupes have come on over here to supply this with whatever plastic we've manufactured throughout the day. So now this rocket here is flying from one location to the other. It's going to take him another 80 seconds or so to get there. Oh, Meep. Look at you. And just in case you're wondering, no, I don't got to worry about my dupe running out of oxygen or stressing out. Ha! Meep has the most luxurious rocket possible. If anything, your schedule might, it should almost allow for a little bit more downtime throughout the day, right? I mean, to be honest, you really don't have to do a lot of work. There you go. All right, so Meep is now landed all the way over here. You can see that once it landed, it already has a true signal, so that's what it is. What I've done is I've put the solid rocket port. This guy right here comes from shipping, and if you put it right next to the rocket pad, it'll actually attach to it. So how this works is it's going to start off by shipping the stuff out first, and then once it's emptied everything out of here, then it will switch and start to load up. So the amount of time it takes to unload and then reload the rocket is really what we need here as far as the filter gate. And as you can see, 200 seconds is a bit longer than we need. So since we can ship 20 kilograms on the rail per second, and we're moving a total of up to 1,000 kilograms, 500 out, 500 in, it takes us about 50 seconds to reload this rocket. So if we really wanted this to move a little bit faster between the 2 different zones, then we can set this to like 60 seconds. So there we can see the rocket is firing up and taking off once again. Nice. All right, so Meep is back, and you can see that the lumber is unloading, just like so, and then dropping out all over here. Bloop, 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 bloop. In this case, it just drops down into my base where it then gets picked up and sorted. And we're loading it up with plastic. And once again, off we go. And here we go, we're unloading the plastic, which I didn't have a full load of. I was only able to get about a half of a cargo container out of that. And there we have it. Now we're loading up the lumber. It's interesting that this is only moving 10 kilograms of plastic as it's unloading. We're going to have to watch that on the other end. It might be that this unloads at 10 kilograms per second rather than 20, which would throw off our calculation a little bit. And here we have it. Meep is back. Yeah, and look at that. So when we unload, it's actually at 10 kilograms per second. So doing the math again, our filter needs to be set to at least 67 seconds. That way we can unload everything and load everything back. Now there's another thing that's going on here, and if you're familiar with rockets, you'll definitely be familiar with their heat. They tend to put out a lot of it. So I've built a box right down here to contain the flame. In case you're wondering, it comes down about 7 tiles and is 3 tiles wide, about that big. So all of this gets really, really hot. So the oxygen inside of here, you can see, is all the way up there at like 500 some degrees Celsius. You can definitely use that to your advantage to generate a little bit of power. However, we do have to be careful when we have things on the line here, because the exhaust that's coming off of here, this carbon dioxide, is going out into the atmosphere. And in this case, since it's not in space tiles, it isn't just being vacuumed away very, very quickly. It's actually over normal tiles here. So you can see that there's a fair amount of carbon dioxide building up right here. Look at that, 8.4 kilograms at a relatively decent temperature of 160 degrees. And depending on what you're looking at, the heat can actually be quite a bit hotter. Like, it's hot enough to melt most metals. So to protect things that are going to be on the line, probably the best way to do something like this is to just build it up here in space. That way the gases kind of get away from it. And if you still want to, you can go down here and build background tiles out of obsidian and really capture the gases or capture whatever it is you're trying to work with here and do something with it. Although the other thing we can do here is stack up the different ports here. So right now I have a solid rocket port. This is just for solids, but there's ones for liquids as well. So I can kind of use these to space things out a little bit and then kind of keep the material I want to go in the rocket away from the rocket here. So for example, if I wanted to ship something that's relatively cold and might possibly melt under the intense heat of a rocket, one thing I could possibly do here is just kind of space it away from the rocket. So let's go ahead and put a liquid port over here, which I might even be able to do multiple liquid ports. That's kind of weird, but it seems like I can do it. Whether or not it'll work, I don't know. But I can also do a gas port right there. And then maybe after all of that, I put a solid port all the way over here, right? So it's relatively far away from the rocket. And if this is up in space, once you get far enough away from it, it just won't interact. It'll be in the vacuum of space and it'll be safe. All right, so a good question is how far? All right, so if we take a look at this, you can see that the heat is going all the way out over here. That's about 9, possibly 10 tiles right there. So the third or fourth port from the right might keep you in a complete vacuum. So that seems fairly straightforward, but let's go ahead and take this to the next level, because what I can see here is that I now have outrun my plastic production. There's nothing on the rail here, and if the rocket comes back, it's just going to go back to the other planet. What I want to do is try to get a nice full load here before I send it over there. So let's see if I can do this the most simple way possible. So one of the things I could use here is a conveyor rail element sensor, but that's only going to work if I have one thing that I'm trying to ship out. But here's the thing, I want to be able to line up 500 kilograms of stuff and then send it into the rocket. So now I need to figure out what does that automation look like. And the first thing that comes to mind is actually just using the rail itself as kind of a storage container. So since this can store 20 kilograms of stuff on the rail, I only need 25 links of rail in order to build up enough stuff to go into the rocket. And the reason I can't just kind of have a sensor right here with a really short run is because this here contains more than what we have in the rocket. So it could fill the rocket but still have stuff here. So all right, so here's what I have here. I have a conveyor shutoff. This is where I'm going to stop and start to build up all of the stuff that I want to go into the rocket. Over here, I have a total of 25 conveyor rail spots. So I can build up a total of 500 kilograms over here. So what I want to do here is put a sensor on this rail to say, you know what, we filled it up to a certain point. Now let's go ahead and let it run. This will detect everything that's moving through the line. So if you just deliver to this, it's going to detect all of that. So essentially, it's either we set it up on kind of a filter automation, or we kind of do this number, which I think is kind of cool, where we use a couple of bridges. So what I can do here is just like this, where I have 2 bridges. So as the material is flowing in from the right, it's going to go in this port and then skip on over that one and jump out of this port right there. There's no rail connection between these two. Goes in here, out there, skips over that one, just keeps going. Once this backs up, it won't be able to go out here, so that it will skip past the input and then move right there. So if I put my sensor right in this spot, I know that I have 500 kilograms on the rail from here to here, so long as every single spot is 20 kilograms. It might be a little bit less, but you get the point. All right, so let's see if I can get one full load of plastic into this rocket. So here's how the automation works. Pretty simple. I just have a thermal sensor right here. I'm looking for above a very low temperature. So in this case, as long as it's above absolute 0, then we should be good to go. We're pretty darn close to it. That runs up to a buffer gate to keep that true signal going for a certain amount of time. So in this case, I want it to be good for 25 seconds. Which should allow me to move 500 kilograms of stuff through that conveyor shutoff. All right, so here we go. Hassan has brought in some stuff for the rail. We can see that it's not tripping the sensor yet. So it's just running in here just like this. And then it should stop right there. Let's run this nice and slow. There we go, it stopped and it moved one more. There we go. So now that's activated. So we can see now that we're delivering plastic into the rocket. We're also continuing to unload onto this rail, so it's actually continuing to build up. There we go, now we've ran out. Although I noticed that this thermal sensor is still high. So maybe I can't do that. I might have to be a lot more selective. All right, so while I work on that a little bit more, let's go ahead and run this rocket. Because the other half of the automation that I need to take care of here is I need to be able to send a true signal once I've actually gone ahead and loaded the rocket. Now, in my brain, that makes me think signal reset. But the thing is, I don't think I have a real reliable source to reset this thing. I can't necessarily guarantee that I'm going to get stuff back on the rail, you know, when the rocket comes back here. And I can't necessarily say that this is going to remain true, because if a dupe runs out and goes to do something like the bathroom or something like that, then that'll flip to false, which would make it look like it's actually taken off. I might be able to detect gas or something like that if this is in a vacuum or something, to be able to say, hey, yes, we've actually done this, so therefore reset it. But right now, I think probably the best thing for me to do is to actually just kind of capture a signal, right? A nice true signal. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the output of this. So once this goes true, we'll kind of filter it out just for a moment, because we know that this is going to be 25 seconds. That's going to give us the right amount of time to load the rocket. And I'll delay the launch signal by that same amount. And just in case we have stuff going on here, well, then I'll send a true signal out from there for a decent amount of time. Although for this small route, I probably don't need more than 200 seconds. So I'll keep that launch signal true for about 200 or so. The neat thing is this allows me to run it in a couple of different ways. I can run it in the just continuous cycle right here if I have this signal switch on, but if I turn that off, then I can have it and run it in like batch modes, to where I have a full load of material that has to go in here before it runs. Ha! That's kind of cool. Aha! Here's what I do. I'm only going to activate this when the rocket is ready to launch and I have enough queued up ready to load the rocket. That's the trick. So when the rocket is ready to launch and I have 500 kilograms of material ready to load, and I detect that, you know, it is there, which in this case I'm using a conveyor rail element sensor. So I'm only able to load one material at a time consistently because I can only detect one different type of material. There might be a way to create loops and then multiples of these and all that fun stuff, but just to keep things simple, let's just work with one material. So, and that will then kind of allow this to run for a certain amount of time. 25 seconds. I'll set that to 25 seconds. So true goes through here, filter. After that, true is then sent over here, and that will remain good for another 90 seconds or so, just in case this went false just for a moment for some odd reason. I might even take this and bump it up a little bit. I don't know. How about 120 seconds? 2 minutes to launch the rocket. All right, so here we can see that the rocket is back, and it's currently unloading its contents back here. So this is ready to launch. However, it's not full of anything yet. Still waiting on more plastic. All right, so here we go. We should have the last bit of plastic rolling in. Boop, there we go. So now this is active, and we are loading up the rocket there with all of that plastic. You know, every once in a while it sends 10 kilograms of plastic. That's kind of weird. This might not be a foolproof plan, but it's pretty good at least. There we go, that filter ran out. You can see that this one lasted a little bit longer, which then send the signal over here. I still have a bit of a delay here because that's intact, 67 seconds, which I think is just fine. I can always just set that to nothing if I really wanted to. And there we go, now the rocket is launching off. So that's pretty cool. I think I now have a system here that allows me to make sure that I build up a certain amount of stuff to load it onto the rocket. So that way I'm not launching very, very small quantities. And it has everything to do with how long this conveyor rail is. So, unless they add a little bit of an automation signal to the actual rocket itself that says, hey, we're going to send a true signal out to the rocket pad. So this thing will remain red unless you have a certain amount of contents inside of it. Then this might be an automation thing that you can set up in order to overcome that. All right, let's look at one more thing here. I have this rocket platform with a couple of ports, and it's actually extended all the way over here. It does look like you can actually extend up multiples of these to run at the same time. You know what? What that means is that you can have a solid import here for one type of material and then another one for another type of material that loads into the rocket at the same time. That way you should be able to manage multiple inputs to your system here. So let me go ahead and try that real quick. Bit of a side note while we're waiting here. Has anybody noticed the new trading cards on Steam? Oh, yes. Okay, so all of this stuff is building up over here. I'm just going to go ahead and launch this rocket off and send it to the other location. I've cleared it from doing a loop, so it'll actually just go over there. We'll set that up to auto. If we go inside of here, I want to be able to pick up a couple of things, like some pips down here. That way we can start to ranch inside of here. That'll be real nice. As you can see, I have more than enough pips over here. Wow, plenty in there. And then even more over here, so should be good. Long hair slicksters, what are you doing down here? You're consuming my oxygen, aren't you? Oh, no. No, you don't. Not today, slicksters. Oh, all right. Slight distraction. We're going to set up an egg cracker. Oh, hey, we already have one. Never mind. Long hair larva. Yeah, get rid of these. We don't need none of those oxygen suckers in my base. And here I was adding more and more oxygen capacity, wondering why is it that I just can't seem to produce enough? Well, questions have been answered. All right, cool. So now it's hooked up. Let me go ahead and allow manual use on both of these. So this one over here is looking for plastic. This one's looking for steel. That one's not exactly plugged in. All right, here we go. The rocket has just returned, and look at this. It's actually using both unload ports at the same time. How about that? So yes, you can unload faster if you have more docks, or shall we say more solid port things. That's pretty cool. Oh man, all these dupes are running into the rocket. Oh jeez, look at these. This is where all my productivity is gone. Don't you guys realize it's nighttime? Like, this isn't the best time to be using the beach chair. But if you really wanted to have some fun... Oh, now you got the right idea, May. Perfect. Hold up. Let me just go ahead and empty the storage real quick because this thing is totally running. Yeah, you can definitely deliver both at the same time and load up the rocket even faster. Nice. So if you wanted to build up multiples of these, then you can absolutely do that. Just to go over the automation again, we just set up a conveyor loader, the type of stuff you want in there. This sensor's the same thing. You build up a run of this that makes sense for you. In my case, I went with 15 spots for the conveyor rail. This automation is 25 seconds. That's 25. That's 120. You could probably play around with those a little bit. And then I have a conveyor shut off right here. That allows it to go into the rocket. Granted, you could probably automate the rocket port and then possibly get away with no conveyor shut off. I wonder if you could do that. Looks like the automation is right in line with it, so let's give it a try. And let me go ahead and empty the storage real quick. You can see that all of that is loading up. Empty the storage, empty the storage. You get the idea. All right, so both of those are now disabled. So as this is traveling up, that is now disabled. And then, once it went enabled because it was full, it runs. Okay, so you don't need the conveyor shut off. You can actually just use this to load it. Okay, but what if we disable both of those and make it run a round trip? So here, let me go ahead and change this real quick, because if these are disabled, I want to see if they can unload still. All right, so this rocket has just returned with a full load, but these ports are disabled. Will it still unload? Ah, you see, it doesn't automatically unload. So depending on how you want to play it, you can either use a conveyor shutoff. Okay, so interesting. There's definitely a reason to use the conveyor shutoff, in that this is pretty much always enabled, allowing you to automatically empty the rocket, even if you don't have stuff to put back in it. In this case, I would have to go ahead and do this number here. So all of a sudden that is true. Okay, cool. First thing it's going to do is ship stuff out, and then it'll ship stuff in. All right, so I keep thinking of different ideas, and hopefully by now you've seen enough of them to formulate your own, but here's my current final arrangement. So I have my conveyor loader over here set for material, then I detect that type of material right here and send that up to a buffer gate at 25 seconds, a filter gate at 25 seconds, and then one more at about 120. That runs to an AND gate. So we're saying the rocket is ready to launch, and we have material that's ready to load. Inside of here is going to be a filter gate, and that filter gate is going to be set to 67 seconds. I can override everything and just kind of run everything back and forth every 60 some seconds or whatever after you land if I turn this switch on. One of the other things that we could do here if I wanted to kind of work this and didn't want to use a conveyor shutoff is I could run automation to one port here and then not run automation to a different port. So this would actually be unload while this one is loading. I could do that. Or I can series these out and just use multiple materials going into the same rocket. Get the idea that there's a little bit of options when it all comes together. All right, so here we are. The rocket is landing, and this is using the other setup. So this is going to be my exit port, and this is going to be my load port. So there we go. We're unloading everything, and then there goes all the plastic. Cool. I kind of like that. That way I don't need to use a conveyor shutoff. And as far as I can tell, this thing doesn't give off heat. Oh, wait. Yes, it does. But it has an overheat temperature of 2,000 degrees Celsius. So, okay. So that's a different way of doing the same sort of thing. All right. So that's pretty cool. I'm glad that's working as well as it is. Actually being able to go between the planets. Now that I kind of got it figured out, I can see a lot of uses for it. So that's pretty awesome. So at any rate, that's all I got time for today. Maybe next time we'll take a look at the liquids and kind of make that work as I go over here to this planet and try to bring back all that tungsten and maybe possibly just bring back some of this water. You can see I do have a lot of steam over here. At any rate, though, that's all I got time for today. Thank you guys for watching. If this looks like the channel for you, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. As always, stay awesome, guys. Peace. Brothgar out.